This video is sponsored by my own comic, The Amazing Red Bee. Stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we are talking an awesome all-ages comic that I read recently called Super Sons. It stars Jonathan Kent and Damian Wayne, the son of Batman and the son of Superman. The first thing I thought about when I got into this book, or when I finished the book actually, was the term frenemies. Frenemies as a word has been around for a while, and it's usually involving two competitors, two people going at each other head to head, and they're acting like enemies, but in the end they end up as friends or partners or anything like that. A couple examples might come to mind as Woody and Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story. There is also Mel Gibson and Danny Glover from the Lethal Weapon series, and of course I consider Jack Sparrow and Will Turner from Pirates of the Caribbean frenemies. Well, that has everything to do with the book I'm talking about today, Super Sons. Let's get into it. As I said, Super Sons features Jonathan Kent and Damian Wayne, the son of Superman and the son of Batman, and they aren't exactly mixing when the book kicks off. First up, a little backstory, and I apologize if I get any of this wrong, since my knowledge of a lot of current mainstream comic storylines is pretty much lacking on all fronts. For the last few years, I have been checked out of most of DC and Marvel comics, of all their new stuff. I've only been picking up a handful of titles here and there. But for the uninitiated, Jonathan Kent, the son of Superman and Lois, Damian Wayne, the son of Batman, and the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, Talia al Ghul. Now, when it comes to Damian Wayne, as I said, he is basically the grandson of Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul, however you want to pronounce it. Who was that guy? Remember, he's the leader of the League of Assassins. Damian Wayne, before he met his father, was being trained to take over and to fulfill that spot as the leader of the League of Assassins. Jonathan Kent, on the other hand, is being raised on a farm, not in Smallville, but very Smallville-esque like. He's doing chores, he's learning the responsibilities of a young man should learn as being the son of Superman, and maybe kind of the son of a farmer, since that's how Superman was raised. Now can you see why I brought up the term of frenemies? These two clash from the moment of the beginning of the story that I read in Volume 1, Super Sons. What we learn in the beginning pages of this volume is that Damian's being sidelined by Batman, not for something he did wrong out in the field as Robin. No, he's missed his home study sessions and 5 homework assignments. Batman says that's a no-go, so Damian has to sit out this patrol and catch up on his homework. Then we have John Kent living his best farm life as his dad does his Superman thing. John Kent is sent to bed, but Damian has other plans. He's sneaked out of the Batcave, and he heads over to John's bedroom to get him to go on their own mission. After that, the fiction-filled hilarity ensues. You see, Damian is on the trail of something called the Amazo Armor. Now, regular readers might know all about this storyline, but like I said, I've been out of the loop of a lot of current comics from DC and Marvel. So as a fresh reader, it was explained pretty plainly for me, which was nice. I didn't have to go through any backstories or any other issues to try to get out what the story was going to be about. As Stan Lee used to say, every comic book can be someone's first. So it's nice when the writers explain something for someone who might be brand new to the comic, but keep it brief for others who already know everything that's going on. So, Reggie Myers is a kid. He's Kid Amazo. He's been affected by this stuff from the Amazo armor, and Damian is on the hunt to stop him. He drags Superboy along because, of course, Superboy, John, has the powers of Superman. Well, mostly. He can't fly yet. But the two bicker back and forth like a pair of brothers. It's not a hatred kind of thing. Like I said, it's like they're brothers. Damian's older, but John is taller. 2 points, both of them happily tell each other throughout the course of this volume. What I really enjoyed about this interaction between the two is the arguing seemed real. It was lighthearted, but still had an edge to it, like someone would argue with their younger brother or sister. It's a great relationship dynamic that's written by Peter J. Tomasi. As the story begins, their investigation reaches an initial hurdle when they try to break into a Luthor building and is stopped by Lex Superman himself. Again, I have to admit, not up to date with all the storylines, so I had no idea why Lex Luthor was wearing a Superman and why they were calling him Lex Superman or Super Lex or whatever it was. But taking that for what it was, the story didn't get hung up on that aspect. The boys have to fight against Kid Amazo and other robotic enemies, including android versions of Superman and Batman. They have to do all of this while trying to save Kid Amazo's sister, who's also been infected by the Amazo virus. Pointing out the art on this Volume 1, it's drawn by George Jimenez and Alison Borges, but with Jimenez handling most of the art chores for the volume. His artwork, I think, nails the tone for this book perfectly. There's a nice amount of detail to make a reader awe at the artwork, but at the same time, it has a playful and almost a cartooniness to it that fits the perfect blend for this character between Damian and Wayne and John Kent, both tween-age characters, and I think the art works perfectly. The highlight of this volume, I think, is the relationship between those two characters. They argue, each of them thinks they have the better way of solving the problem, and I have to admit, I tend to agree with John a little bit more, not being a fan of Damian's stubbornness, but I can see why Damian has grown on fans. So, along with the android superhero showdowns that's in this comic, I think the heart of the series, at least in this first volume, isn't the powers and intellects of the characters, but how they work together and their brotherly relationship that develops. There's one part in this story early on when Damian and John find some dead people. This really freaks out John, as it would any other kid his age. Damian's in the same age range, but he's trained by the leader of the League of Assassins, and by Batman, so he reacts differently, obviously. John wants to call his dad, rightly so, while Damian basically calls him a baby for wanting him to run home. It's a great dichotomy between these two characters and the world that they've grown up in. As volume 1 of this comic book concludes, the last issue really shows the development and everything that's gone on between the two characters. Back home, John learns that Clark and Lois have decided to move out of Hamilton, the idyllic Smallville-esque town John's grown up in, and they're going to move back to Metropolis. John doesn't want any part of this. A sympathetic reaction, really, that most people would connect with because he'll be leaving his friends and basically his entire world. So what does he do? He goes to see Damian. It's unclear at first why John would even go see Damian based on the story that we've just read. The two argue all the time. It's great that John showed up, but he doesn't want Damian's advice. He kind of just wants to let his problems and everything that's going on around him, he wants to vent it out. Damian basically says he doesn't care. And after a few moments of them bickering back and forth, they start to get in a fight. It's the classic trope of budding friendship between two rivals who don't think they are friends, but they really are. So this fight between the two in the last issue of this volume 1 takes place in the Batcave, and Alfred is there. In the end, it's Alfred who relates to the boys that their fathers didn't always get along either. And Damian Wayne offers some very sage advice for his younger friend. The volume ends with Superman agreeing to let John go out on patrols with Damian, which perfectly sets up the series going forward for the Super Sons. I really enjoyed this first volume of Super Sons, and I'm actually looking into getting more volumes and maybe even getting the omnibus that they just recently released. The relationship between John and Kent, I think it is written perfectly by Peter J. Tomasi, and that artwork, like I said, in volume 1 is great by Jorge Jimenez. The only thing I'm sad about is that the series came to a close maybe much sooner than it needed to, as DC Comics ended up aging up John, but at least we got the back issues, right? Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. This video is sponsored by me and my comic, The Amazing Red Bee #1. It's available right now at CoolCoyoteBooks.com. It's a perfect kids comic, all ages friendly book about what it means to be super. And keep an eye out for the Kickstarter starting up soon for issue #2.